The smarter you think you are, the harder the fall hits. Because in Thailand, the real game isn't played with money, it's played with trust. And the one who stays quiet? She's the one rewriting your story without you even noticing. I wasn't new to this country. I'd heard all the warnings. I'd watched my friends get used, scammed, left behind. I swore I wouldn't be one of them. I thought I could spot the game a mile away. But B didn't play the usual game. She never asked for money, never chased visas or marriage. She just sat beside me, quiet and calm, and let me believe I was the one in control. Turns out, I wasn't even part of the story. I was just her shadow. If stories like this hit home, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. I've been through 2 divorces back in Florida. Lost half my retirement to lawyers and alimony. That's why I came to Thailand in the first place. My dollar goes further, and the women don't come with divorce attorneys. I've lived in Bangkok, spent time in Manila, even tried Phnom Penh for a while. I know the deal. I pay for what I want, I leave when I'm done, and nobody gets hurt because everybody knows the rules from the start. But when I met B near that second-hand phone stall off Soi Buakhao, something felt different. She wasn't standing outside a bar in a tight dress waiting for some foreigner to buy her a drink. She was crouched behind a plastic table, fixing phones with tiny tools I couldn't even name. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore this faded blue t-shirt that looked like it had been washed 1,000 times. "Excuse me, do you speak English?" I asked her. My SIM card had stopped working that morning, and the other phone shops quoted me prices that seemed too high for something so simple. She looked up at me with these dark eyes that didn't light up the way bar girls' eyes do when they see a foreign wallet. "Yes. What's wrong with your phone?" I handed it to her. She popped out the SIM tray, examined it under a small magnifying glass, then cleaned the contacts with some kind of solution. The whole thing took maybe 3 minutes. 50 baht, she said, handing it back. I gave her a 100 baht note. "Keep it." She pushed the extra 50 back across the table. "I said 50 baht." That stopped me cold. In 5 years of living in Southeast Asia, I'd never had a local person refuse extra money. Never. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She was already turning back to another phone on her workbench. I stood there for a moment, my fingers moved with this precise confidence, like she'd done this repair 10,000 times before. She didn't look at me again, didn't smile, didn't try to start a conversation. She just fixed the next phone. "What's your name?" I asked. "B." "I'm Michael from Florida." She nodded but didn't look up. "Okay," I waited for her to ask me something, anything. How long had I been in Thailand? What did I do for work? Did I like Pattaya? The usual questions, but she just kept working. "Well, thanks for fixing my phone," I said finally. "You're welcome." I walked away, feeling strange. Not rejected exactly, just invisible. Like I was just another customer, nothing more. After years of being treated like a walking ATM or a ticket to somewhere better, being ignored felt almost insulting. But I kept thinking about her for the rest of the day. The way she didn't smile when she didn't mean it. The way she refused my extra money without any explanation or apology. The way she seemed completely uninterested in me as anything other than someone with a broken phone. 2 days later, I walked past the stool again. She was there, same position, same faded t-shirt. This time, I didn't have a broken phone. I just stopped and watched her work for a minute. "Do you need something?" she asked without looking up. "No," I said, "just walking by." She glanced at me then, just for a second. There was something in her expression I couldn't read. Not annoyance, not curiosity, maybe just acknowledgement that I was there. "You live around here?" I asked. "Sometimes." What kind of answer was that? But before I could ask what she meant, she was back to her work and I felt dismissed again. I walked away, wondering why I cared. I'd been with plenty of Thai women who were more beautiful, more talkative, more interested in spending time with me, but none of them had ever made me feel like I needed to earn their attention. My next night, lying in my small apartment near Beach Road, I realized I wanted to see her again. Not because she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever met. She wasn't. Not because she seemed easy, she definitely wasn't that either. I wanted to see her again because she was the first person in Thailand who had looked at me and seen just a man, not a foreign bank account. I had no idea that was exactly what made me perfect for what she needed. I started walking past her stall every few days. not stopping, just walking by. Sometimes she'd nod if she saw me, sometimes she wouldn't. I told myself I was just taking a different route to 7-Eleven, but I knew I was lying. After about 2 weeks of this pathetic routine, my phone actually did break. The screen cracked when I dropped it getting out of a motorcycle taxi. I went straight to her stall. "Brace you by," she said when she saw me. "Phone's actually broken this time." I showed her the cracked screen. She examined it carefully. "Screen replacement. Take 2 days. $800. I nodded. "That's fine. When should I come back?" "Wednesday afternoon." I hesitated, then took a chance. "Are you hungry? There's a noodle place around the corner." She looked at me for a long moment. I prepared myself for a polite no, maybe, with a smile to soften it. "Okay," she said instead. The noodle shop was nothing special. Plastic chairs, fluorescent lights, a menu written in Thai on a whiteboard. We sat across from each other at a small table, and I realized I had no idea what to say to her. "How long have you been fixing phones?" I asked. 3 years. "Do you like it?" She shrugged. "It pays." Every question I asked got a short answer. Not rude, just minimal, like she was conserving words. But she didn't seem uncomfortable. She ate her noodles methodically, occasionally glancing up at me with those same unreadable dark eyes. "Where are you from originally?" I tried. "North, small village. Do you miss it?" For the first time she paused before answering. "Sometimes." When we finished eating, I reached for my wallet to pay. She was faster, pulling out a small roll of bills and paying the woman at the front before I could stop her. "You don't have to do that," I said as we walked back toward her stall. I asked you to dinner, I should pay." She stopped walking and looked at me directly. "You think because you buy me noodles I owe you something?" "No, that's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" I didn't have a good answer for that. Back home, when a man asked a woman to dinner, he paid. It was just how things worked. But the way she was looking at me made me realize how that might sound to her. "That's what I'm used to," I said finally. "I'm not used to men who pay for things and expect nothing," she said. "So we're both learning something new." That night, I lay in bed thinking about what she'd said. In 5 years of dating in Thailand, I'd never met a woman who insisted on paying for her own food. Most of the women I'd been with not only expected me to pay, they expected me to pay for their friends too, and their family's dinner, and their phone bill, and whatever else came up. I'd gotten used to it. It was part of the deal. But B didn't want anything from me. She fixed my phone for exactly what it cost. She paid for her own noodles. She never asked what I did for work or how much money I had. She never mentioned needing help with rent or her mother's medical bills or any of the usual stories. It should have been refreshing. Instead, it made me nervous. I didn't know how to be around someone who didn't want anything from me. In Thailand, my value was simple. I was a foreign man with a pension and savings. That made me useful. But if B didn't need my money, what was I to her? When I picked up my phone on Wednesday, the screen was perfect. She'd even cleaned the case. "Looks brand new," I said. "Good phone, should last long time if you don't drop it." I laughed. "I'll try to be more careful." She almost smiled at that. Almost. "Same noodle place tomorrow?" I asked. She looked at me again, with that measuring expression. "Why?" "Because I'd like to eat dinner with you again. Just dinner." This time she did smile, just a little. Okay. Walking back to my apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not excitement exactly, and definitely not the conquest satisfactions I usually felt with women here. It was more like possibility. Like something real might actually happen. I should have known that was my first mistake. We started meeting for dinner twice a week, always the same noodle place, always splitting the bill. She never suggested going anywhere else, and when I did, she'd just shake her head. "I like it here," she'd say. I learned small things about her slowly. She was 26. She'd been in Pattaya for 4 years. She lived somewhere near Naklua, but never told me exactly where. She had a sister back in her village who was married with 2 kids. She sent money home every month, but not much, just enough to help with her nephew's school fees. "What did you do before fixing phones?" I asked one evening. "Different things." "Like what?" She was quiet for so long I thought she wasn't going to answer. "Office work, restaurant, some other things." The way she said other things made me not want to ask what they were. I was starting to understand that B had boundaries around certain subjects, and pushing against them would just make her pull away. After about a month of dinners, I suggested we go back to my apartment to watch a movie. She looked at me like I'd suggested something much more complicated. "I don't do sleepovers," she said. "It doesn't have to be a sleepover. We could just watch something and you could go home after." "I don't go to men's apartments." "Why not?" "Because I don't." There was something final in her voice that told me not to push. So we kept meeting at the noodle place, and she kept leaving after dinner to go back to wherever she lived. I started to notice other rules too. She never wanted to hold hands when we walked. If I put my arm around her, voice stiffened slightly until I moved it. She never let me take photos of her, not even casual ones with my phone. "I don't like pictures," she said when I asked about it. "Why not? I just don't." One evening I suggested we meet at Walking Street, maybe get a drink at one of the bars. "No," she said immediately. "Why not? It's just a drink." "Too many people. Too loud." "What about Beach Road? We could walk along the water." "Too open." I was starting to see a pattern. B didn't like crowded places. She didn't like places where lots of people might see her. She preferred quiet corners, back alleys, places where she could sit with her back to a wall and watch who was coming and going. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" I asked her one night. She went very still. "Why would you ask that? You're just careful about everything. Careful is smart." "Careful about what, though?" She looked at me for a long moment. "You really want to know?" I nodded. "Men," she said. "I'm careful about men." That should have been a red flag. The way she said it, like men weren't individuals but a category of threat. But instead of making me want to back away, it made me want to prove I was different. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said. "That's what they all say. But I mean it." She almost smiled at that. "That's what they all say too." After 2 months of dinners, she finally let me hold her hand while we walked. Just for a few minutes, and only in the dark alley behind the noodle shop. Her hand was smaller than I'd expected, and rough from her work. She held on tightly, like she was grounding herself. "This is nice," I said. Squeezed to my hand once, then let go. "Don't get used to it." But I was already getting used to it. I was getting used to her quiet presence, her careful answers, her rules that made no sense to me, but seemed to keep her safe. I was getting used to being with someone who didn't want anything from me except my company. I thought that made me special. I thought I was earning her with. 3 months into whatever we were calling this relationship, B disappeared for the first time. We were supposed to meet at the noodle shop on a Thursday evening. I got there at 7 like always, ordered 2 bowls and waited. 7:30 came and went. 8 o'clock, by 8:30, the noodles were cold and the restaurant owner was giving me sympathetic looks. I tried calling B's phone. It went straight to voicemail. I walked to her phone stall, but it was closed. The neighboring vendor, an old woman who sold fruit, said she hadn't seen B since Tuesday. "She's sick, maybe," the fruit lady said in broken English. "Come back tomorrow." But she wasn't there the next day either, or the day after that. I found myself walking past the empty stall multiple times a day, like she might magically reappear if I just checked often enough. By Sunday I was genuinely worried. Had something happened to her? Was she hurt? In trouble? I realized I knew almost nothing about her real life. I didn't know her address, her friends. I didn't even know her address, her friends. And on Monday morning my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Sorry, had to be gone, we'll call you later. B." That was it. No explanation, no "I'm okay" or "don't worry." Just acknowledgement that she'd vanished and a vague promise to call later. I stared at that message for probably 10 minutes. Had to be gone. Where did that even mean? Had to be gone where? Why? For how long? Or the next day. On Wednesday I got another text. "Can you meet tomorrow? Same place, same time?" I typed and deleted about 6 different responses. Finally I just wrote back yes. Thursday evening she was sitting at our usual table when I arrived, like nothing had happened. She looked exactly the same. Same faded shirt, same careful expression. The only difference was that she seemed more tired. "Where were you?" I asked as I sat down. "I had to go somewhere." "Where?" "Family thing." "Is everything okay?" She nodded but didn't elaborate. We ordered our usual noodles and ate in a silence that felt different than our normal comfortable quiet. This silence had weight to it. "I was worried about you," I said finally. "I'm sorry. You could have told me you were leaving. It happened fast. How fast? You were gone for 5 days." She looked up at me then, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not guilt exactly, but something close to it. "I'm not good at explaining things," she said. "Try." She was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes I have to disappear. It's not about you." "What do you mean you have to disappear?" "I mean I have to not be here. Not be anywhere people can find me." That sounded ominous as hell. "Are you in danger?" "Not anymore. What does that mean?" "It means I handled it. I wanted to push, to demand a real explanation, but something in her expression warned me not to. She was back. She was safe. And pushing might make her disappear again. "Will it happen again?" I asked instead. "Maybe. Can you at least tell me when you're going?" "If I can." It wasn't much of a promise, but it was something. We finished dinner, and for the first time in a week, she let me hold her hand as we walked back toward her phone stall. "I missed you." Sigh, she squeezed my hand. "I know. Did you miss me?" She was quiet for so long I thought she wasn't going to answer. "Yes," she said finally. "That's the problem. I didn't understand what she meant by that until much later. I thought she was talking about catching feelings, about letting someone get close. I thought the problem was that she was starting to care about me. I didn't realize the problem was that caring about me made me useful to her in ways I couldn't imagine. The second disappearance happened a month later. This time she gave me warning, sort of. "I might have to go away again this weekend," she said over dinner on Thursday. "Family thing again." Something like that. "How long this time?" "Not sure, maybe a few days. At least, she'd told me." That felt like progress. I didn't see her Friday or Saturday, but Sunday evening she texted that she was back and could we meet the next day. Monday night at the noodle shop, she seemed more alert, more aware of her surroundings. She kept glancing toward the street, watching who walked by. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine." But it wasn't fine. I could tell. She barely touched her food, and every time someone entered the restaurant, she tensed. "Maybe we should go somewhere else next time," I suggested. "This place seems to make you nervous tonight." "No, here is good." We were walking back toward her stall when it happened. A Thai man appeared from between two parked motorcycles. He wasn't threatening, didn't approach us or say anything aggressive. He just stepped into our path and stood there, looking at me. He was maybe 40, wearing jeans and a polo shirt. Nothing remarkable about him, except the way he stared at me with open curiosity, like he was memorizing my face. B went completely still beside me. Not scared exactly, but hyper-silly. The man said something to her in Thai. She replied briefly, her voice flat. He looked at me again, nodded once, and walked away. "Who was that?" I asked when he was gone. "Nobody. He seemed to know you." "How long people know me? I fixed their phones." But that wasn't a customer interaction. I'd seen those. This was something else entirely. That night, around 11 o'clock, there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it to find B standing in the hallway. "I thought you didn't come to men's apartments," I said. "Can I come in?" She looked around my small living room like she was memorizing it. Then she sat on my couch and pulled me down beside her. "That man tonight?" I said. "He wasn't a customer." "No. Are you going to tell me who he was?" She leaned against me, something she'd never done before. "If anyone asks, I was with you tonight, all night." "What? If anyone asks where I was tonight, tell them I was here, with you." "Why would anyone ask that?" She didn't answer. Instead, she kissed me. Not gentle or tentative like I'd expected our first kiss might be. Desperate, almost angry, like she was trying to convince herself of something. We ended up in my bed, and she stayed the whole night. In the morning, she was gone before I woke up. No note, no goodbye. The next evening, she was back at her phone stall like nothing had happened. When I approached, she greeted me normally, but there was something careful in her manner. "About last night," I started. "What about it? If someone asks, you were with me." "Yes." "Who's going to ask?" She looked, "But if they do, that's what happened." "B, what's going on?" "Nothing you need to worry about." But I was worried. The man who'd stared at me, her sudden appearance at my apartment, the way she'd used me as an alibi before anything had even happened, It felt like I was being pulled into something I didn't understand. "Are you in trouble with someone?" I asked. "Not anymore." That phrase again, like trouble was something she resolved regularly, something that came and went in her life like weather. Over the next few weeks, things went back to our normal routine. Dinner twice a week, careful conversation, her rules about where we could go and what we could do. But now I knew she had another life, one that occasionally required alibis and disappearances. I told myself it didn't matter. Whatever she was dealing with, it was her business. I wasn't her husband, or even really her boyfriend. We were just two people who enjoyed each other's company. But late at night, lying in bed, I'd remember the way that man had looked at me, like he was taking inventory, like he wanted to remember my face for later. I should have asked myself why a complete stranger would need to remember what B's foreign boyfriend looked like. I should have wondered what kind of trouble required alibis. Instead, I felt flattered that she trusted me enough to use me as her cover story. By month 6, I started noticing things that should have bothered me more than they did. B never left anything at my apartment, not a hair tie, not a phone charger, nothing. When she stayed the night, which happened maybe once every 2 weeks, she brought everything she needed in a small backpack and took it all with her when she left. "Maybe you could leave some clothes here," I suggested one morning. "Save yourself the trouble of packing every time." "I don't leave things places," she said, like this was a reasonable life philosophy. "Why not?" "Because then you have to go back for them." "But you come back anyway." "That's different." I noticed she never paid for anything with indoor tables. I'd always cash, always exact change or close to it. She avoided places with security cameras. When we walked, not obviously, but I started to see the pattern. She'd steer us down side streets instead of main roads, choose restaurants with outdoor seating instead of indoor tables. One evening I reached over to touch her shoulder while she was looking at something on her phone, and she flinched so hard she nearly dropped it. Not a small startled, a full-body reaction, like she'd forgotten where she was. "Sorry," she said immediately. "You surprise me." "I was just touching your shoulder." "I know, I was thinking about something else." But it wasn't thinking, it was hypervigilance. I'd seen it in guys I knew who'd done military tours, that constant awareness of threats, the way they positioned themselves to see exits, the way unexpected touch could trigger a defensive response. "B, were you ever hurt by someone?" She went very still. "Why would you ask that? Like you're expecting something bad to happen." "Bad things happen to women who aren't careful. But something specific happened to you." It wasn't a question, and she didn't answer like it was one. "A lot of things happened to me," she said finally. "That's why I'm careful now." I wanted to ask what things, but I could see her shutting down. These were the moments when she'd usually change the subject or suggest we head back. Instead, she surprised me. "You know what I like about you?" she said. "What? You don't ask too many questions?" "I ask questions all the time. Not the right ones." I didn't know what that meant, but something in her tone made me not want to find out. The next week she disappeared again. This time for 3 days, no warning. When she came back, she had a small cut on her chin and what looked like finger-shaped bruises on her upper arm. "What happened to your face?" I asked. "I fell off my motorbike." "And your arm?" She looked down at the bruises like she'd forgotten they were there. "Same fall." It was a lie. I knew it was a lie. Motorbike accidents don't leave finger-shaped bruises. But when I opened my mouth to say so, the look in her eyes stopped me. "I'm glad you're okay," I said, instead. "Me too." That night she stayed at my apartment again, but she didn't sleep. I woke up around 3 in the morning and found her sitting by the window, looking out at the street. "Can't sleep?" I asked. "Thinking. About what?" She was quiet for so long I thought she'd decided not to answer. "About how long this can last," she said finally. "This? You and me, this normal thing. Why can't it last?" She turned away from the window to look at me. In the dim light from the street, I could see something that might have been sadness in her expression. "Because I'm not a normal person, Michael. And eventually you're going to figure that out." I got up and went to sit beside her. "Whatever's going on with you, we can figure it out together." She leaned against me, and I felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. "You're a good man," she said. "This going to make this harder." "Make what harder?" But she was already pulling away, already closing off again. "Nothing. Go back to sleep." I should have pressed. I should have demanded answers. Instead, I let her deflect like I always did. That was my mistake. By the time I realized what this was, it was already too late. Not disappeared for a few days like before. Gone. Really gone. I went to the noodle shop on Thursday evening and waited until the close. I went to her phone stall. It was empty, the metal security gate pulled down and locked. I tried calling her phone. The number was disconnected. Friday morning, I went back to the phone stall. The neighboring vendor was there, arranging her display. "Excuse me," I said in my broken Thai. "Where B go?" The old woman looked at me with something that might have been pity. "B pay later," she said. "Gone." "One come back." She shook her head. "My clab." "Not coming back. Why? Where she go?" The woman glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. "Police look for her," she whispered in English. My stomach dropped. "Police? Why?" But she was already turning away, busying herself with her fruit. She wouldn't meet my eyes again. I stood there in the morning heat, trying to process what she'd told me. Police were looking for B, which meant whatever trouble she'd been managing, whatever situation required alibis and disappearances, had finally caught up with her. I went home and tried to think through everything I knew about her. Her full name, I realized I'd never learned it. Her address, she'd never told me. Her family, just vague mentions of a sister up north. Her work, fixing phones, but the stall wasn't registered in her name. For 7 months, I'd been seeing someone who barely existed on paper. Over the next few days, I kept going back to places where she might turn up. The noodle shop, the phone stall, even Walking Street in case she was working at one of the bars. Nothing. A week later, I was walking back from 7-Eleven when I saw it, a small piece of paper taped to a utility pole, already weathered by rain and sun. At first I thought it was an advertisement. Then I saw her picture. It was definitely B, though the photo looked official, like an ID picture or maybe a booking photo. Below her image was text in Thai, and at the bottom a phone number. I took a picture of it with my phone and went straight to a translation app. The Thai text was formal, official sounding, something about information regarding and what looked like a case number. I called the phone number. A man answered in Thai. I tried to explain in English that I'd seen the poster, that I knew the woman in the picture. He hung up on me. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the man who'd approached us on the street months ago, the way he'd stared at me like he was memorizing my face. I thought about B's sudden appearances at my apartment, her need for realism, her rules about avoiding cameras and crowded places. I thought about how many times she'd used me as a cover story without me realizing it. The next morning I went back to look for the poster. It was gone. I checked other polls, other streets. Nothing, like it had never existed. I started asking around at bars, restaurants, anywhere foreigners might have heard gossip. Most people just shrugged or suggested I try the dating apps. But at a small beer bar near the beach, an older British expat named Dave pulled me aside. "You're asking about a Thai woman who disappeared?" he said. "Yeah. Her name was B." He looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Mate, if the police are looking for a Thai woman and she's gone to ground, you don't want to be the foreigner asking questions about her." "Why not?" "Because either she's in serious trouble or she's serious trouble. Either way, being her foreign boyfriend makes you a person of interest. Person of interest in what? Whatever she was involved in." That stopped me cold. "You think she was involved in something illegal? I think you spent 7 months with someone who kept you from knowing anything real about her life. That's not accident, mate. That's strategy." I left the bar feeling sick, not because I thought B was a criminal, but because I was starting to realize how thoroughly I'd been played. She hadn't let me get close because she was damaged or scared. She'd kept me at exactly the right distance to be useful. 2 weeks after she vanished, I finally understood what had happened. I was sitting in my apartment, still hoping she might call or text, when it hit me. The timeline, the pattern, the way she'd used me. Every time she'd stayed at my apartment, it was right after one of those encounters with Thai men who seemed to know her. Every time she'd needed an alibi, it was because she'd been somewhere she wasn't supposed to be, doing something she couldn't admit to. And every time, I'd been her willing accomplice. "If anyone asks, I was with you tonight. Tell them I've been with you every night this week." She hadn't been protecting herself from an abusive ex or hiding from debt collectors. She'd been using me as cover while she did whatever it was that eventually brought the police looking for her. I'd been her foreign boyfriend alibi, the perfect cover story. Think about it from outside. Respectable American retiree, clean record, no criminal connections. If anyone asked where B was on a particular night, she could point to me. Who would question a woman spending time with her foreign boyfriend? I'd given her legitimacy, credibility, a reason to be places and do things that might otherwise look suspicious, and I'd done it gladly, eagerly, even. "You're a good man," she'd said the last night I saw her. "That's going to make this harder." She'd been right. Being a good man, being someone who didn't ask the right questions, who respected her boundaries, who let her keep her secrets, had made me the perfect mark. I'd thought her rules were about trauma or trust issues. They were about operational security. She didn't leave things at my apartment because she couldn't afford to leave evidence of her real life anywhere. She avoided cameras because she couldn't risk being photographed with me in places that might matter later. She never let me meet her friends or see where she lived because I wasn't part of her real life. I was part of her cover story. And the worst part? I'd fallen for it completely. Sitting there in my cheap apartment, looking at her contact information that no longer worked, I realized I'd never loved B at all. I'd loved the idea of her, the quiet woman who didn't want anything from me except my company. The damaged person I could protect and help heal. The authentic connection in a place where everything felt transactional. None of it had been real. She'd presented me with exactly the kind of woman I thought I wanted, and I'd been so grateful for it that I'd never questioned why she wanted me. I'd thought I was different from the other foreigners in Thailand, the ones who got scammed for money or property or visas. I'd thought I was smarter than that, but I'd gotten played harder than any of them. She hadn't stolen my money, she'd stolen something more valuable, my sense of reality, my ability to trust my own judgment. She'd erased herself through me. It's been 4 months since B disappeared. I still live in the same small apartment near Beach Road. I still walk past the phone store where I first met her, though someone else works there now, a kid with dyed red hair who nods at me sometimes but doesn't say much. I haven't dated anyone since. Not that I haven't had offers. The usual smiles from women sitting outside massage shops. The occasional friend trying to introduce me to someone. I just don't have it in me. I can't tell what's real anymore, and worse, I'm not sure I care. Some nights I sit on the balcony with a cheap bottle of water and stare out at the street. I see the tourists laughing, the tuk-tuks buzzing by, the girls dressed up like candy-colored dreams. Everything looks exactly the same as it did before B. But it doesn't feel the same. I used to think I was immune, smarter than the other guys. I'd nod along when they told stories in bars about gold-digging dreams, lying wives, sudden disappearances. I thought, not me. I thought I'd never be fooled. But what B did, it wasn't loud, it wasn't about greed or drama, it was quiet, precise, psychological. She never asked me for a single baht more than she earned. She never begged, never pleaded, never pretended to be someone she wasn't. She just slipped into my life, like water through a crack, and disappeared the same way, and I let her. That's the part that gets me. I didn't fight it. I didn't question it. I felt useful, seen, maybe even loved, and I held on to that feeling like it was mine to keep. But it wasn't. It was borrowed, rented really, and when the time came she took it back without a word. I still wonder where she is, if she's safe, if she's using someone else now the way she used me. I'll probably never know, and maybe that's the real lesson. You can live in a place for years, think you've learned the rules, think you've seen everything, and still be completely wrong. Still get played, still be just another Farang who thought he was too smart to be fooled. So now I keep to myself. I nod politely. I tip decently. I don't ask names, because I know what I am here. Just another man who came to Thailand looking for peace and ended up a footnote in someone else's escape plan. And the worst part? I'd still say yes if she knocked on my door tonight.